Let me ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to run a high-frequency trading firm, manage a global high-risk supply chain, and, occasionally fight off bloodthirsty highway bandits, all from the comfort of your living room couch?
Well, I mean, that sounds like the ultimate stress test for anyone's blood pressure, honestly. But in the context of virtual economies, that is the literal daily routine for millions of people.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into the brutal, hyper-capitalist, player-driven economy of the MMORPG Albion Online, specifically looking at the landscape in the year 2026.
And we have a massive stack of sources today. We're looking at recent 2025 and 2026 strategy guides, deep technical breakdowns of third-party trading tools, and transcripts from YouTube financial gurus who, well, they specialize entirely in virtual wealth.
Right. And our mission today goes way beyond just, reviewing a video game. We're exploring how human beings apply hardcore, real-world economic theories when they're placed in a sandbox with limited resources.
Exactly. We're talking about things like dividend investing, physical arbitrage, complex risk calculation, and algorithmic trading.
It's just fascinating to me because on the surface, you've got this fantasy game with swords and magic, but under the hood, players have turned it into a completely cutthroat Wall Street simulator.
They really have.
And frankly, there's a lot you can learn from them about navigating complex systems, managing risk, and, well, optimizing your own daily routines.
Yeah, virtual economies often act as perfect petri dishes for human behavior. I mean, when you introduce real supply and demand, physical distance between markets, and genuine loss, the economic principles that emerge aren't fantasy at all. They are identical to the forces driving global trade.
So let's start at the absolute foundation of all this virtual wealth. Looking at these 2026 guides, if you want to understand how players are making millions of in-game silver, you have to look at the safest baseline of the economy, which is private islands.
Right, the private islands.
To me, this looks exactly like a diversified blue-chip dividend portfolio.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it, actually. But the game forces players to make a critical infrastructure choice right out of the gate. You have personal islands and you have guild islands.
Okay.
And choosing the wrong one for your specific financial strategy is, well, it's a classic mistake that can cost you millions in sunk capital.
Yeah. Based on the guides, a personal island seems to be your traditional agricultural setup. Farm plots, herb gardens, animal pastures.
Right.
But it requires an active premium subscription status to actually be mathematically viable. Meanwhile, guild islands don't even allow farming plots at all.
Yeah, guild islands are purely industrial. Players use them to build what the community calls a laborer empire.
A laborer empire, that sounds intense.
It really is. You construct this massive guild hall that houses up to 15 NPC laborers, and the strategy here is essentially running a virtual HR department.
Oh.
You hand these laborers journals that detail the work you've done out in the world, and they passively generate resources in return. The trick to maximizing that return on investment is managing their happiness metrics using shared furniture, beds, and trophies.
That's incredible. So if you're a free-to-play player leaning into industrial manufacturing, you build a guild island. But if you want that sweet passive agricultural income, you go for the personal island.
Exactly.
And the farming loop itself is a brilliant study in passive generation.
Yeah.
I mean, you plant, you water, you wait 22 hours, you harvest. But the real profit isn't the crop itself, right? It's the seeds.
Yes, the seed return mechanic is the entire crux of the dividend analogy. If you just plant a field without optimizing your inputs, you might harvest the crop, but you lose the seed.
Right.
Then you have to go back to the market to buy more seeds, which completely devours your profit margin.
The players use a daily resource called focus points to water the crops. And when you apply focus, your seed return rate jumps high enough that you're effectively guaranteed to get a seed back, and sometimes even a bonus seed.
Which is huge.
Yeah. Your daily overhead just drops to absolute zero.
Which turns that agricultural plot into an infinite money glitch, provided you manage your focus correctly.
And players treat this like a literal paycheck. The data shows they'll grow carrots because the demand is practically a flat line. Like every player needs them to feed their mounts.
Sure.
Or they'll pivot to corn to chase market volatility, since corn is tied to potion crafting. If there's a massive war happening and potions are in demand, corn prices spike. Done right, this passive loop generates up to 1 million silver a day. But It all hinges on that focus budget.
Yeah, and focus is given to premium players at a rate of 10,000 points a day, with a hard account cap of 30,000 points.
I found the psychology of this cap so fascinating. Reading through the strategy forums, players treat focus exactly like a strict corporate budget or a daily bandwidth limit.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about your own daily productivity. If you have a set amount of deep work hours and you just sit on the couch, that time evaporates. In Albion, if you leave your account idle and hit that 30,000 cap, your generation halts. You're actively burning capital.
It's a use it or lose it resource designed to drive daily engagement. And the professional crafters don't just spend it randomly to keep the meter ticking. They optimize every single point around a metric of silver returned per focus point spent.
Which leads us to the 60-40 split. This rule is everywhere in the 2026 crafting meta. From what I gather, spending your entire budget on one activity is a total trap.
It is.
You're supposed to spend roughly 60% of your daily focus on high-tier refining and the remaining 40% on crafting.
The math behind that ratio is crucial. Refining raw materials into usable goods yields the absolute highest raw silver return per focus point. If you transport raw ore to a specific city that offers a refining bonus, you get a 40% resource return rate. It is peak efficiency. But if you stop there, you just have a warehouse full of refined metal. It's not highly liquid.
So you use the remaining 40% of your focus to craft those metals into finished armor or weapons. And when you use focus on an item you specialize in crafting, it adds a flat plus 59% to your return stack.
Exactly. You are balancing maximum resource efficiency on the front end with maximum market liquidity on the back end.
Okay, so managing this 10,000 focus budget is essentially like managing a high-yield retirement portfolio. You log in, execute your 60-40 refining crafting split, 10-year dividend-paying carrot farms, and you just print silver with practically zero risk.
Pretty much.
So if the island provides this perfectly safe, highly profitable floor, why would any rational player ever leave?
Because human ambition rarely settles for the floor. The island provides a safe baseline, but the true wealth, the kind of wealth that dictates server politics and massive wars, that requires engaging with the broader world. Right. It requires stepping out of that safe harbor and interacting with the game's ultimate economic engine, which is the black market.
The Caerleon black market. This completely shifts our deep dive from safe, passive production to the absolute wild west of physical arbitrage.
And it is so important to understand how unique this system is. The black market isn't some shady, player-run cartel. It's a foundational pillar of the game's code, operating through a central NPC in the city of Caerleon.
The genius of this mechanic is how it fuels the game's PvE, player versus environment loot system. I always just assumed that when you kill a monster in an MMO, the game magically spawns a sword from thin air.
Those games do.
Right. But in Albion, that gear was crafted by a real player, sold to the black market in Caerleon, and then held in a database until a monster needed to drop it as loot. The entire world's loot table is crowdsourced by the player economy.
It acts as a massive economic sink to prevent the hyperinflation that plagues almost every other virtual world out there. And because of this, the black market prices aren't dictated by players undercutting each other. The prices are driven entirely by an algorithm reacting to global PvE activity. If thousands of players are out killing monsters, the game's database gets depleted, the algorithm panics, and the buy orders on the black market just skyrocket.
Which creates staggering arbitrage opportunities. Let's look at the numbers for the Royal to Caerleon arbitrage strategy because they are wild.
They really are.
The guides show that a Tier 5 cloth robe might sell for 4,500 silver in a starter city like Thetford. But the black market in Caerleon will pay 12,900 silver for that exact same robe. That is a 187% gross spread.
And savvy players push those margins even further with a strategy called the Secret Point 3 Flip.
Oh, I read about this.
Yeah, instead of just flipping base items, they buy cheap, low-tier gear and use raw magic materials like runes, souls, or relics to manually upgrade the item's enchantment level before selling it to the black market.
It's pure value-add manufacturing. But I have to challenge the premise here. In any real-world financial market, if a neon sign is broadcasting a guaranteed 187% profit margin, high-frequency traders swarm it, and that gap collapses to zero in microseconds.
Yeah.
Why doesn't the player base just flood the black market with cheap robes and instantly crash the price?
Because of a physical logistics bottleneck. Albion Online doesn't have a magical instant travel global auction house.
Wait, so you can't just sit in Thetford, click a menu, and instantly sell your inventory to Caerleon?
Not at all. Your inventory has actual weight, and it is physically tied to your character. To claim that 187% profit, you have to pack those robes onto an animal mount and manually ride across the map.
Oh, wow.
And the routes connecting the starter cities to Caerleon run straight through full loot PvP red zones.
Yeah, the roads are swarming with other players whose entire profession is highway robbery. The arbitrage gap exists solely because the market is pricing in the risk of murder. It is literally 18th century merchant shipping. If you're a merchant sailing a galleon from the Caribbean to London, you don't hope you won't encounter pirates. You mathematically price the pirates into your business model.
And this is where the virtual economy transforms into an exercise in high-stakes logistics and really actuarial science. Professional transporters don't operate on gut feelings.
Right.
They use an explicit mathematical formula. Net profit per run equals the spread, which is the price difference between the cities minus the gank rate multiplied by the load value.
The sources show that on the Royal to Caerleon route, there's roughly a 5 to 15% chance of being ganked and losing everything.
Which is high.
Yeah. You have to assume you will lose 1 out of every 10 shipments. If your profit margin on the other 9 shipments can't cover that total loss and still leave you in the black, you just don't make the run.
And that risk calculation has to factor in temporal trends too, like the weekend trap.
Ooh, the weekend trap is such a brilliant psychological snare. Let's think about this from a macro perspective. On weekends, more people log in to play. More players means more monsters are being killed across the server.
Which means the black market algorithm is desperate for gear to restock the loot tables so buy prices hit their absolute peak. The spreads look incredibly lucrative.
But because it's the weekend, the highest concentration of hostile players are also online, patrolling those red zones.
Right.
The highest potential liquidity coincides perfectly with the absolute highest volatility and risk of total loss. Imagine if driving to work on a Tuesday paid double your salary, but taking the highway carried a 15% chance of your car getting totaled and all your assets seized.
That's the perfect way to look at it.
So how do you mitigate that?
Yeah.
First, you look at your vehicle.
The mount to your ladder is your primary risk lever. Your choice of mount dictates both your payload capacity and your survivability. At the bottom, you have the mule.
The trusty mule.
Right. Cheap, painfully slow, and really only viable if you are moving in a massive armed caravan.
Then you move up to the ox. This is the beginner sweet spot because it carries a massive load, but you are essentially driving a semi-truck through a war zone. You are a big, slow target.
Yeah, so professional transporters operating in red zones usually graduate to Tier 8 Swift mounts. You sacrifice raw cargo space for speed and evasion. You carry fewer items per run, but your statistical survival rate jumps significantly.
But even on a top-tier mount, the math dictates you will eventually get caught. This is where the golden rules of self-insurance come in, and honestly, this is just phenomenal real-world investment advice.
Oh, totally.
Rule number 1, never load more than 10% of your total bankroll onto a single mount. If you have a net worth of 5 million silver, your cargo cannot exceed 500,000.
It's basic portfolio diversification. You compartmentalize your exposure.
And rule number 2, keep 3 times your average load value in completely liquid silver. You need to be able to absorb 3 consecutive total losses and still have the capital to buy a 4th load to restart operations. A transporter who goes broke on one bad run isn't a logistics expert, they're just a gambler.
There is also a fascinating, entirely physical variable to this risk equation in 2026. Albion operates on crossplay, meaning PC and Xbox players share the exact same servers.
Okay.
But the physical hardware creates an uneven playing field that fundamentally alters a player's risk profile.
The latency tax. This detail blew me away. Think about the UI friction. If you're playing on an Xbox, thumbing through a digital inventory with a controller, D-pad takes significantly longer than a PC player who can just instantly click and drag with a mouse.
But the real tax is in the combat mechanics. The data shows that combat reaction times on a controller are roughly a half-second slower than on a mouse and keyboard.
And in a chaotic red zone ambush, a half-second is an absolute eternity. It's the difference between triggering your mount's speed boost and escaping, or getting stunned, dismounted, and losing your entire 500,000 silver payload.
It creates a scenario eerily similar to real-world algorithmic trading, where firms spend millions laying fiber optic cables just to shave milliseconds off their connection to the stock exchange.
Wow.
Xbox players are mathematically at a disadvantage in high-speed evasion, which means they actually have to run safer, lower-margin routes just to account for their physical input latency.
It's incredible. And because the variables are so complex, fluctuating market spreads, algorithmic demand, actuarial gank rates, hardware latency players have completely stopped trying to calculate this in their heads.
They had to.
Which brings us to the 2026 arms race. The third-party tools these players have engineered are terrifyingly advanced.
We have moved far beyond shared spreadsheets. The community has established massive third-party infrastructure. The foundation is the Albion data project. Players run background clients on their PCs that silently scrape real-time market data directly from the game as they travel between cities.
That scraped data is then fed into processing hubs like Albion Free Market and Albion Online Hub. Yeah. But the undisputed crown jewel of this tech arms race in 2026 is the update to a calculator tool called PromptWiles.
PromptWiles is where the line between a fantasy MMO and a real-world fintech platform completely dissolves.
The Pro Plus tier of PromptWiles now includes a fully integrated AI voice assistant. Imagine sitting at your desk, you hold down a hotkey, and you literally say into your microphone, "Find my top 5 transport routes from Limhurst to Bridgewatch."
And the AI processes the voice command, instantly cross-references your personal historical accounting data and successful trades with the live scraped market feeds.
Insane.
And it immediately outputs the exact inventory you should purchase, the route to take, and the precise profit margin you can expect.
It's algorithmic trading wrapped in a fantasy aesthetic. And in virtual worlds, just like in global finance, asymmetric information is the ultimate weapon.
Always.
You need this level of data analytics just to stay ahead of the game's macroeconomic shifts, which are entirely dictated by the developer's roadmap. The devs are essentially acting as a central bank, and their patch notes drive massive market speculation.
Look at the 2026 calendar. In April, the game is scheduling a massive visual overhaul alongside a dedicated Xbox console UI release.
A major update like that guarantees a massive influx of new and returning players.
And what is the first thing those new players need to be competitive? They need premium status, which can be purchased using in-game silver.
Right.
Data-driven traders know that the demand for premium currency is going to absolutely spike.
Oh.
The play right now is to convert liquid silver into premium currency before April, wait for the player surge, and ride the artificial inflation.
Pure currency speculation. And looking further down the roadmap to summer 2026, the developers have announced the massive Dragon Invasion event.
An event of that scale completely disrupts the existing meta. Preparing for the Dragon Invasion isn't about grinding your combat skills. It's an exercise in supply chain positioning.
Because a new expansion means new weapon lines and artifacts. And history dictates that whenever developers introduce new gear, it's almost always slightly overpowered out of the gate, to encourage players to use it.
Anticipating this, the cartels and data brokers are already adjusting their operations. They are aggressively hoarding specific raw materials and positioning their capital to completely corner the market on these new Dragon weapons the exact second the patch goes live.
And to complicate things even further, the devs are introducing a new in-game armor system that utilizes AI. The game itself is going to analyze player combat data to suggest optimal meta builds to new players directly in the user interface.
This fundamentally alters consumer behavior. If the game's internal AI universally suggests that every new player should buy a specific Tier 5 bow, the demand for that bow will artificially skyrocket.
So you have traders using the PromptWiles third-party AI to analyze data, specifically to front-run the market demands created by the developer's internal AI. It is literally AI algorithms fighting other AI algorithms over the price of a digital wooden bow.
It's a whole other level.
Let's take a step back and look at the ecosystem we've unpacked today. We started with the conservative dividend investors, managing a strict daily 10,000 focus budget, meticulously balancing a 60-40 refining split to generate infinite passive returns on their private islands.
Then we tracked those raw materials into the hands of the logistics experts, physically hauling assets across hostile territory to exploit a 187% arbitrage gap at the black market, mathematically pricing in a 15% chance of highway robbery.
And finally, we looked at the data brokers, utilizing voice-activated AI and massive scraping networks to execute currency speculation and corner the market ahead of central bank-style software updates.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
There is a profound sociological lesson here. Whether you are managing your own retirement portfolio, planning a new business venture, or just trying to protect your time and cognitive bandwidth, the principles apply.
Yeah, absolutely do.
Establish safe baselines to protect your capital. Respect the opportunity cost of your daily energy. Don't let your personal focus budget sit at the cap. And no matter what industry you are navigating, always mathematically account for the pirates on the road.
It proves that human nature remains a constant. Whenever a system introduces scarcity and risk, we inevitably invent complex financial derivatives to beat the house.
Absolutely. But I want to leave you with one final, slightly unsettling thought to mull over. We've seen how players are leveraging sophisticated third-party AI to scrape data, run predictive models, and optimize entire supply chains in real time to outmaneuver the market. But what happens when the player-built AI becomes better at predicting, manipulating, and controlling the virtual economy than the developers who actually coded the game? When the player's algorithms outsmart the central bank of the game's creators, who is really in control of the world at that point,